it's my golf. You know, when I go paint now, you know, I just look for a nice day, chill, listen to music.
That's so sick.
You know, just, you know, I look to it as to settle myself, to kind of recenter myself.
I love that you just said all of that.
Killa Kela Podcast. KillaKelaOfficial.com.
101.4 FM, 24 hours a day, all genres.
FlexFM.co.uk.
Instagram UK Frontline.
Beatbox created.
Killa Kela.
And we're here to talk about world music and street culture.
Killa Kela Podcast.
This, as usual, is the Killa Kela Podcast, transmitting live from a Thursday morning. Big shout out to the mighty Graffiti Kings. This is the Graffiti side of the podcast. And, well, I'm taking the quarantine to my advantage and getting the opportunity to hit Zoom all over the world. And I am chuffed to bits to be talking to the man like Sket One from Los Angeles, California. How are you, brother?
What's up, man? How's everybody doing out there? Hope everyone's well. What's going on?
It's fucking great to have you on, man. It's fucking
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate being asked.
I'm seeing all this awesomeness behind you as well. So this is another thing as well. Like, we don't do this in the podcast game, you know, jumping into people's environments. You got some badass pieces behind you there, brother.
Yeah, it's all Bodé. And I know as well as everybody out there knows who Bodé is and
oh my God,
what has been attributed to us from Bodé. So I've been collecting him since
crazy
forever.
Bro, there's like Basket, there's Bodé. Like, I mean, these names are possibly the reason why you have to collect art in the urban world right now. Do you know what I mean? The price ain't ever going down.
Yeah. There's people out there that, you know, have paved the way for me and literally got me to the point where I was like, wow, if they're doing it, you could be doing it, you know? So the influence was massive to me.
See, and let me just break this down because, you know, there's a whole diverse kind of but broad number of characters that watch this graph show. And what I was really excited about getting you on for was mostly because I remember you from back in the day, around the late 90s, it must have been for me, where I'd see you in magazines, you know, predominantly graph and you know, the odd clothing thing going on here and there. But it was an American approach to, you know, expanding the idea of what graph and what street art can do. But bro, you were on the fringes. This was like before it was called street art. You were fucking doing it. And I've just found that, you know, because it's an interesting conversation to have with you because you were there before that, you know, stigma of it came in and it blew up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah, I started writing a long time ago, and I think the first time I started tagging, I was 15, which would be 1985. And I was raised in New Haven, Connecticut, which is right above New York for the geography people. So my parents at the time were divorced, so I was traveling. You know, I would visit my dad in New York City all the time, and there's a commuter train that would go from New Haven to New York. And that was my main wake up to graffiti. And then
so you just saw it. You said this was just you were just getting it firsthand.
Yeah, at that particular time, you know, I mean, I always think I was blessed to be grown up in that time because you had punk popping off, you know, you had skateboarding and BMX popping off, you had hip hop popping off, breakdancing, just everything. It was just all being dropped on you at once. Plus MTV was, you know, pretty influential at the time. And, you know, I just soaked all that stuff up, you know, just everything. And, you know, when hip hop came around, I got into everything. I was, you know, the only thing I didn't do was MC. But I was DJing at the time. I was already drawing. And then graffiti just came like as the natural path that I would go on, just because I was already like drawing and stuff like that.
It's crazy the way that the path, I mean, even now when when you consider where graph is and a lot of other street disciplines, you know, there is, like you say, back in those days, there was a whole heap of inspiration and influences dumped on you from a great height of visually seeing stuff and sonically hearing things, and technology coming in with its first wave of what turned into that, you know, that the golden era of hip hop, you know, and that still resonates now on a bunch of levels. That it's in the DNA of everything that's coming out now, even now, right?
Yeah, it's like it was crazy growing up and like so close to New York, because you know everything was focused there as far as hip hop. You know, everyone was looking to New York and, you know, taking the train in. So when you would come from Connecticut, you know, the first you would hit Woodlawn, and then right after that, you would end up going under 238th Street, which is like a famous bridge. And the Bronx Riders, the famous Bronx Riders, would just have that place lit up. Can I ask you
while we're on that subject? So, did your train, you coming in from Connecticut, was your train going straight into from that way into New York?
Yeah, we're only about an hour and a half north of New York.
Wow. Whoa, that's crazy. Tell me, what was it like to see the trains and everything getting done the way it was back, like as a kid back then?
It's just overwhelming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you sit there, and if you do it, you know, I grew up doing it mostly, you know, back alleys, walls, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did get to some trains later in, you know, the 90s. But, you know, you would just see these, you know, even if it was just, you know, throw ups and whatever it may be, it was still overwhelming, because you were just like, how'd they get it done?
Yeah.
You know, how was it done?
The fuck is that done?
You know, I've been, you know, blessed with being friends with Richie Scene, and talking to Scene about some of the productions he's worked on and the things that he's, you know,
get
done.
out of here. Stop it now. Just stop. It's too much for me.
When you hear the stories, you know, you're just like, fuck, how, you know?
Yeah, because they're just so big, man. I mean, people, and what you forget at the time, which is something I've learned from doing these podcasts. By the way, I'm a fan. I'm not a writer myself. You know, I'm just clued up like a geek would be, and I speak for geeks. You know what I mean? But like, truth be known, is back then when you were to see something like that, you know full well they haven't got the paint or the cans like they have now. Like, this was something that was, their name was bigger than the persona. It's just like this huge thing, and even the thought of doing it with a can is just unthinkable. It was
not even like the scaling. Like, you only had a 4 foot, maybe, all right, let's say 6 foot spread between trains. You know, you couldn't back up and check out your piece and make sure everything was proportioned and, you know, everything was going correct. You know, there's technical stuff that I just sit there and I'm just like, how is that possible? You know, and then
what's the theory behind that? Do you think? Because there's a small width at back, and especially back in the days with those depots and being like New York the way it was. How did you get your perspective?
I think it was like kind of like when people, you know, they map out a drawing and they just, you know, they know measurements and stuff like that. Like, you know, this particular part has to fit between the door and, you know, the windows, and they use those things as guides and stuff like that. That's the only thing I could guess.
Crazy.
But yeah, much respect for everybody back then. Everybody.
Trailblazers, hands down.
Absolutely.
Trailblazers. Still revered, and that's what I love about graph as well. Is like, you know, the names stick. It's like jazz. People remember the names of the players. You know, it's the same with graph.
Definitely. So I grew up in that era with the whole, you know, subway art and style wars and spray can art, and you know, having all that exposure, and those being my Bibles and my go-tos to like learn history and stuff like that. I don't think that's as prevalent as today as it used to be. I feel like the whole mentoring and history and the whole understanding style and you know, the deep dish stuff, I don't think that's around as much as it was back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. I would argue that that's the case with a lot of modern music now. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think things progress, but I know what you mean. If you're, I don't know, when I was coming up, I knew what was relevant and cool, but I just had a thing about needing to go to the past. I wanted to make sure that I was covering all bases so my peers and no one could slip me up on anything with beatboxing. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's good to know. It's good to be knowledgeable, you know. It's good to have that fact that who came before you and who, you know, who paved the way for you, just so you
for real.
say, like, you know, okay, I respect these people. You know, they brought it to the forefront. They were the ones who did all the fighting, you know, for me. Those, you know, now that we got all the caps and the paint and, you know, basically anything you possibly need in the way of supplies.
Oh my God, you said they're fighting. They fought. They were. Weren't they? They really threw the gauntlet.
Those people scoped out for caps. They would get them off of oven cleaners and, you know, all these other different cleaners to get the right cap for the right job. And, you know, all that research and development, that was done hard, you know? It was done, like, happening. So, yeah, I give props to all those people.
Yeah, man, for real. So you were in this time where it was just you were just a sponge to this, and being the age you were, like when did you first start getting on the tracks yourself and you know, track sides and hitting Hall of Fames and stuff? Like when was that most prevalent for you?
I would say after I got out of high school, I ended up going up to Boston Museum School of Fine Arts.
Big up Boston crew. Love Boston.
I was with a bunch of other like writers up there. At that particular time, let's see, there was people like Eros and Honor and Essay and Target. And I mean, I can go on for days. KR was there at that particular time, Rise. But all these guys were, at the time, you know, Boston was super active. T's were getting hit, which is the transit system there. Trains were getting hit. So I would say that particular time is when it really started to ramp up. Like I would start to, you know, missions all the time. And then when I got back from there, I ended up, when I got back from there and ended up in New Haven, that's when we started hitting the whole Metro North line, which is that railway that goes from New Haven to New York.
Whoa. So you basically wanted passage entry for out of one end of the country straight to one city to the next, right?
Yeah, it just, you know, that's when, like, I would say probably the 90s is when like the whole freight movement kind of started up, and people started hitting freight trains over here and commuter trains and stuff. And the subways just got to a point where, you know, if you went to New York to paint a subway, it was just impenetrable. You know, really.
So it almost became like, well, it's a relegation thing where this is the way to do it. And because I remember freights became I remember watching Cope 2's GTV and a couple of other ones. I used to hang out at my mates' houses and stuff, and
that's
a lot of freights going down in those videos.
Really,
you know,
Dooley, who produced GTV, really good.
I fucking used to love that shit. I loved it.
Yeah, it's a great video series, man. Great video series. Dooley is from New Haven, Connecticut, and he writes Brat. And we were basically in the same cruise together and stuff like that. But Doolio he's big over there with you guys.
Yeah.
He's telling me he comes over there on tour and stuff like that. So,
dude, now this is ringing bells because there was always Connecticut crews in them videos.
Yeah, definitely.
Now it's all making sense. No, I got it. Okay, this is it. Wicked.
Yeah. So there's mad people who, Connecticut in the 90s, actually, a lot of people started painting there. I mean, you know, we have a lot of people that are from Connecticut that are pretty popular writers like Emit and Sub and who else used to like come up to Connecticut? I know Cycle was always around.
Really?
These are all like my IMOC crew.
Wow.
It became a time in Connecticut where there was a couple legal spots where people would paint on the regular. And, KAWS is so big now. It was weird, you know, because he was just another graffiti writer.
Yeah.
You
now
know?
all of a sudden he's just like he's a juggernaut.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's great to see somebody, go from this level up to that level, because then it's like, wow, we can do that too.
Yeah, it gives you hope, right? That's the You've got to have a flame holder. It's just, and all it takes is one torch, and it sets the whole fucking world, as he has. He's burnt, cooked it, and ate it.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
So this sounds to me like what you're collecting your stripes. You know what I mean? This is. So at what point were you like, yo, I'm gonna give this thing a shot? Because there must have been like a new wave that came in, and it must have just fell right at the time when your creativity was at a particular point. Because even when I see your pieces now, like some of your production work, it's just like, it's so like ahead of itself. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate that. I feel like probably in the 90s, when I was trying to find out like where I wanted to go as far as a career, is when I realized like, okay, you have this talent. How can you make money from this talent? Because I know nobody was going to pay me to paint. So, but they did. I ended up going into sign and like the sign business,
right,
and hand lettering and stuff like that, and learning that whole process and neon signs, and just basically getting a job which taught me a skill. I came and I could draw, so I could draw patterns and stuff like that for, the installation guys that, installed these signs. And then from that, just at that particular time, that's when the sign industry went from everything being hand done to computers.
Sorry, I think I missed a date. What date was that when you got into that?
I would say that was 94.
Yeah.
When I started. And all my creative attention kind of disappeared from graph and went into computers.
Right.
Like I wanted to, it was like a new tool, it was like, oh, here's this tool.
Yeah.
Make it work for you. You know what I mean?
That was really hard as well, because like Apple Macs back then, they were. I remember my friend getting one for the first time ever. That shit was just a mess.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I remember. Like I think I learned on CorelDRAW 2.
That's the one.
That was like the first kind of Illustrator program that I started to learn on stuff. And then once I learned, the basics of that, I started to that was. My mind just opened up. I was like, I could do so much with this, and then I got into and then I started, I had this job. So I started, doing clothing on the side, and then everything started building up and everything was going good. And then, life came in and I had kids.
Yeah, that'll do it. All right.
Yeah. So once I had kids, it was like, I still did everything at night, but I was more focused on, taking care of the family. And moving forward,
for sure.
Like that,
And this is kind of where I come into play, because I remember seeing your name in different magazines, imported and UK, like it was clear that there was that transition at the time, right?
Yeah. So it was, I would say everything kind of became inactive for me from, I'll say 95 to 2000, 5 years. I probably took a break.
Right.
But by 2000, I came back strong. I just came back and I was like, all right, I gotta come back at it on all fronts. All fronts. And when I got back to painting, I had an opportunity to link up with Mark Bodé.
What?
He's
in Frisco, right? He's in San Francisco, right?
Now he's in around Sacramento, but at the time he was living in Massachusetts.
Right.
So I linked up with him, and we had this spot in Connecticut called I forgot it. I want to say that it was like a Hall of Fame, but it really wasn't. It was just a spot in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which was an old factory that was knocked down but the only thing left was the foundation of the building. And it's still there today. But this became a legal spot in Connecticut to paint. So I got to talking to Mark, and I wanted to have an event to honor Vaughn Bodé. And it was the first Bodé Jam. And we would basically make it first come, first serve. Everyone would have the same background color, and we would just do pieces with Bodé characters.
That's insane.
And
that's insane.
That was covered in graphitism. Graphitism was like, I had a really great relationship with graphitism.
Hold tight, graphitism all day. Like, never mind Britain. That was an internationally driven magazine that didn't exist anywhere else.
Definitely. And it was quality. It wasn't even like a magazine. You know, that was like, it was a good book when you got it.
Yeah.
You know? So they killed it. They killed it.
It's actually, it's very sad that it's not around, you know, even if it was like quarterly for a year, which is, you know, back to where it was just so sick, wasn't it?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, before the internet, I mean, those magazines, I mean, I have a stack of them still, you know, saved up, but when you look through them, and just to think how amazing that was, because they were put together by writers, and they were, you know, collected, and everything was just done by writers. Awesome.
I mean, it's, you know, it's poetic, isn't it? I love it. Love it.
It's awesome. So yeah, after the Bodé Jam, you know, I mean, we had tons of New York writers. We had tons of people from Rhode Island, tons of people from Massachusetts would come down. It would just be, you know, one day. I remember the first one we had, Henry Chaflankin, he came and he was taking pictures, and, you know, like, there were so many crews there that, like, I looked up to as a writer growing up. Like, FD was there, like Dash and Wayne, and just all these New York writers. And
too much for me, man. My head just have been gone.
And I was just like, look at this one subject that has meant so much to us, that it brings out all these writers, you know. And we did it for about 4 or 5 years. Until they shut down that particular spot. But it was always a good time. It was always
yeah, man. I mean, where to go from here? That's insane. So yeah, sorry. So when you break down your path, you were clearly like in the right circles of people. Like, but to like the average person, you know, like the Mees, for instance, and other writers of that time. That doesn't seem quite accessible. Like, what was your calling card? What did you have as a calling card that was just like, yo, I do that? Do you know what I mean?
Right. I think
it's amazing, and your work.
I would say it was just my drive, my passion, and my bank of skills that I had. Yeah. You know, like I would run into a lot of writers, and they would just write. You know, they were just graffiti artists.
Yeah,
and they were content with that. You know, I don't think I was ever content with just being a graffiti artist.
Yeah,
you know, I've always wanted to, you know, expand and push what my skills can do, or what I can personally do, or what I can accomplish. So it was more of a drive or a passion, you know, and I just ended up, you know, getting involved in anything I possibly could that would challenge me, you know, bring me to it. Like, the way I ended up in toys is, you know, and doing and designing and creating, you know, vinyl toys was all because of being around people who wanted to do the same thing as me, or wanted to create.
Yeah.
And getting involved, you know, and just pushing the envelope.
Was there anything ever that you were like, you know, because you talk about, you know, pushing yourself and whatnot, because the toys, I would imagine at the time when they first ever, you know, Kid Robot and things were starting to flourish, that probably would have been quite an obstacle. Never mind the Apple Macs of the 90s, you know what I mean? But has anything really ever like really pushed you to the point of, damn, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can put, at that time anyway, graph onto this medium.
No.
That's wild.
No, not at all. No, not at all. I was like, I like, so like with the whole toy thing is that when I first stumbled across toys, it didn't even have to do with it didn't come from graffiti. It came from, just, being on the internet and collecting other things.
Yeah.
And then I came across Michael Lau and what he did over in Japan and read about it and read about him and how he was creating toys from his characters, his art. And I was like, oh, that'd be tight,
Tight as
and
fuck, yeah.
like, that would be dope. And then it was funny. I went to Mark Bodé was having a show in New York, and I went into the show to, support him and say hello and catch up with him. And I was there, and he said, you know what, bring some stuff with you because I'm meeting with Kid Robot because they were doing his first toy, the Cheech Wizard toy. That was Kid Robot's first toy.
Damn.
So I was like, all right, dope. And at the show, I met Tristan Eaton, who, basically was the creative force behind Kid Robot. And now he's the creative force behind his empire.
Yeah.
But Tristan was super young. He was super young and he was super cool. And we got to talking. And, he was like, do you have skills in Illustrator? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you do graffiti? And I was like, yeah, I got some stuff right here. He was like, dope. And he just handed me a CD with templates on it. He was like, design some toys here. He's like,
damn.
And that was it.
It's like that. Wow.
Just like that. And, I had no idea that it was going to send me on this whole another life path. You know what I mean? With designing stuff. I just thought it was cool. I was like, yeah, sure. I'll fuck around with it. I'll do it.
Crazy.
And that's how it all came. But now it's like anything else. At that time, it was definitely more difficult to get your foot in and get a chance to design something. I mean, now it's totally accessible. I feel like people have, the skill level to do it. You got 3D printers that can just, people can print stuff at will, it's affordable. You have YouTube, you can go on there and learn about mold making and, pulling stuff yourself and making your own resin figures. And you don't need a company to actually make this happen anymore, because the knowledge and the skill set is out there for anyone to grab. You just have to, find the time to invest in it if you really, really want to get into it.
Yeah, totally. It's almost a snooze you lose, because the competition now is actually it turns into yourself. You're your own competition because you can do anything. It's just, do you have the time and the patience, isn't it?
Yeah. I honestly, it comes down to it. I mean, we all have projects that we start and then we stop and we're just like, they'll sit there, and collect dust, and then. We have projects that we see from start to finish and beyond. It's just getting yourself together and pushing yourself. For me, it was just, I knew graffiti was graffiti and I love graffiti. It's the basis of everything I do creatively. It's where I came from. It's that one art that it's my golf. When I go paint now, I just look for a nice day, chill, listen to music.
That's so sick.
Just, it's my Sunday. It's my church. It's my, I don't look to it to go burn people. I don't look to it to get my name up everywhere anymore. I don't look to it to feed my ego. I look to it as to settle myself, to kind of recenter myself.
I love that you just said all of that.
But it's true. It's like, graffiti has these different stages in my life where it meant different things to me. But now where I'm at with it is where I always wanted to be with it, just painting and enjoying and not worrying or not focusing on, catching fame from this piece or I'm going to do better than this dude, or I'm going to create this, just so I can get this locked down, or it's a natural, peaceful situation now,
I was going to say peace of mind. That's certainly the case. But with age comes wisdom, I guess, right? And this is like a moment in time that you were probably waiting to get or wanted to get to, and now you're at it. Here's what I think, because when you're dealing with a hip hop discipline, you know, because no matter how people decorate it and what the flavor of the month is, the parameters are hip hop. Like with these things, if you grow up in that world with the athleticism and sensibilities, and you get given all you get the parameters, you get the sheet that has the box, and all you got to do is keep on developing and honing your skill. After a while, you hit the ceiling with the skills, and you have it all in one big box, and then it just becomes, you've got all the tools there, and it becomes a hell of a lot easier just to be creative, right?
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, and then once it got to like the toy thing, I still painted. I haven't stopped painting. I don't paint as much as I do anymore. You know, I try to get out as much as possible, but you know, we got to make money. We got to survive and stuff like that. So, you know, the whole toy thing I kept up, but I was happy to finally get to a point where, you know, like anything else, there's trends and there's these things that, you know, go on in industries and stuff like that. And then everybody kind of gets back to the root of the industry. And with, you know, my latest release with Super Plastic, we ended up doing these Krylon cans. I don't know if you've seen them.
I've seen them. They're fucking sick, man. Like, just ahead of it. It just, you know, it's to see that. It's just a awesome play on it's just a great idea, isn't it? You know,
it's just, you know, this is where it really, when you look at the roots of the designer vinyl, you know, culture, and it goes back to Japan, the designers that actually came out first, they were always grabbing from hip hop and hip hop culture. And
like Beast to Honey, man. I remember it. They early doors, they loved the whole, the culture of it, didn't they?
Yep. There's like Tim Su was doing like boombox characters and characters with, you know, the Bronx in it and stuff like that. It was just, everything was being focused on hip hop, and it was great, you know. And then of course it progressed and moved into different realms where we brought in different artists and different styles of illustration, which is, I love it and all, you know. But the reason why I got into it was purely because of, you know, graffiti and hip hop and creating characters and, you know, having these characters, you know, come to life, you know, characters that are on the wall actually, you know, come in 3-dimensional format.
Well, which is amazing. Did it ever become a bit of a parody in itself? Did you ever think to yourself, actually, this might be taking it too far? Or was that never a question in your head?
No, I saw it as progression. You know, a lot of people, I mean, if you think about it, at the time, there were so many things going on in the 90s, you know, in the early 90s. I mean, you had the whole rave scene that was pretty big on parody.
Yeah.
You know,
true.
In that going on. And, you know, Jungle was going on at the same time. And I think about that, like that whole time period and stuff like that. And, you know, I think the whole parody thing kind of extended itself to some of the hip hop stuff. But for me, I don't know. I don't think like people are like, oh, you're doing toys or you're a sellout or you're this or that. I don't know. I just never saw it like that. I just saw it as a different form of expression, you know?
Oh, yeah, no, totally. And for reference, I feel the same way. You know, it's very easy to dismiss something based on the premise that it's almost got its own life now. It's not even graphic. It's just its own entity, isn't it? What's the price on an average Kid Robot piece now?
Now, I would say probably anywhere from like, I mean, it all depends on size, you know, but if you get like a little 3-inch, they can go for like $10 now, you know, like the little blind box ones. You know, the bigger figures have always been anywhere from like $60 to $100.
Right. Shit.
You know, the stuff that I do, the resin sculpture stuff that I do.
Yeah.
That stuff, you know, I sell like a canvas because it's all produced in numbers that are like 25 for the world.
Yeah, for real.
You know, maybe 30 for the world. You know, the resin stuff. Plus, you get a very high-end look. Like when you hold a piece in your hand, it weighs about, you know, 2 or 3 pounds. There's some weight to it, and the effects that you get with resin versus, say, a vinyl toy it's totally different. It's far more the art side of things rather than a production piece that's, you know, made of vinyl.
I would say there's like there is a psychological thing to it, isn't it? With everything like this, like you say, the resin being a heavier consistency, it's a lot more weighted, and you know the packaging of these things, like this is, you know, everything's thought through from 1 to 10, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always said that everything around us is designed. Every absolute object that you can look at has been designed by somebody. Somebody has sat there and thought about, okay, if I put this down, it has to stand correctly. If I put this up, you're talking from a fork to a piece of toilet paper to whatever you want.
Dude, I've never ever thought about that in my life. My head's just been blown. It's so true.
It's been designed. Everything that you wear, somebody has had to design it and thought about you in the end. So, you know, these are the same way. These toys, I don't like to call them toys, but that's how we always refer to them. Yeah. You know, that's how they are. That's what we did with this last one. You know, when we were designing this, you know, I was sending pictures of Krylon cans to make sure that this particular, everything was in proportion, like the way the old school Krylon cans from back in the day created. You know, so yeah. You know,
what's the most expensive? What is the most expensive one that's ever been sold? Do you know?
No. I'm sure it would be a KAWS piece.
It would have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would think. I think I saw a 5-foot KAWS, you know, one of the big ones, one of the companions. I saw that auctioned off at Christie's last year, and I think it went for a lot of money, like a ridiculous amount.
Man.
But I would have to say it would have to be one of his pieces. He's probably, but there's stuff now that's kind of crossing that particular barrier. It's getting to the point where, you know, it is looked at as a piece of art, you know?
Yeah, I think, I would totally agree. Totally.
Stuff that I do in resin. And I mean, I'm even doing some stuff with a partner, and he's working with Swarovski crystals, you know, and that particular, that's a whole nother collector base. Like, you know, you got people out there that collect these kind of, you know, high-end objects, and they're being brought over to our world. So I don't know. It's this whole particular thing has kind of grew into its own massive culture.
Yeah, for real. What's the catalyst for that? I mean, you know, there's the cosign of the music world, you know, that Drake inspired, like, oh yeah, well, he likes it, so we like it, kind of thing. And I think that works for viral, you know, memes and cat gifs and shit. But like with the art world, there is this impenetrable barrier that is like the higher echelon of buyers and the, you know, is it a case that because I know you've done stuff with Pharrell being a part of the auction and exhibition of these events, like does his cosign go a long way? Is that how KAWS gets the reputability to like sell for these numbers? Is it that kind of route to market?
It sure doesn't help. Like, it doesn't hurt you, you know, to have those connections, you know. It definitely does not hurt, but it's not, I mean, it's not needed. You know, I've seen Tristan absolutely excel in his artwork, and he's always been like one of those people I've looked up to the way he brands himself and the way he puts himself out there, and the clients that he works with, and the decisions he makes for his art and for what he creates. And good decision making, being able to create freely and having the support behind you. But it definitely doesn't hurt. I mean, I've had some people collect my work that, Ghostface has done a couple shout outs for me.
Wow.
And like, stuff like that. And, Whoopi Goldberg bought a piece of mine, and, well-known people, it always helps, but at the same, it doesn't drive your work. I always see KAWS just gets, he has incredible clients, He's gotten designed for just huge clients, and you do that.
Yeah, man. I had a theory on this, because it really does come down to the cottage industry, like how you handle yourself with your immediate fans. And I'm a big believer of like core fan base, and just nurturing people that think the same way you do. If you really take Banksy being an example, there's tons, but if you really break down his 13 to 30 million followers on Instagram, what really it comes down to is there's probably like 7 rich Russian billionaires in there, and they'll buy anything that they take and get off of him. Do you know what I mean? And that's all that really matters, right?
Yeah, I mean, resale value is always, a big thing. I know a lot of people like, it's almost like your stock price.
Yeah.
Your personal stock price. How much you're wanted by the public, or how much demand there is for your particular product and stuff like that. For me, in the end of the day, as long as I get to have fun and do what I do, I'm pretty much happy, man. I mean, if the come out was to be this huge person and stuff like that, I mean, I gotta think, Brian, KAWS, like, I gotta think it's gotta be somewhat brutal, to have that weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? I don't think it's a walk in the park, and he's just sitting there like, oh, okay, this is all well and good.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's gotten to the point where, it's bigger than him. He's got people underneath him, people above him.
yeah, I agree. I had Todd Terry over tail end of last year, and he said the same thing. It was interesting. He said, can you imagine being like a Simon Cowell of the world, and having that kind of millions over your head? Just your life, you just wouldn't have one. You'd just be on the phone, 3 a.m. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things I would not want to give up, I mean, it's nice to have some peace. It's nice to be able to walk around and have nobody notice you and stuff like that. Like, I'm good with that. You know what I mean? I'm good with that. But, I've also been around people, that have that. I remember one time we were in downtown LA, and I was having dinner with Richie and his wife, Scene.
Crazy.
And somebody came in off the street. They recognized Scene off, way. Through the window, and came in off the street. And here we are eating dinner, and asked him to sign something. And I was just like, wow, that was the first time I've ever seen a graffiti person, get, you know what I mean? Like, recognized and, get asked for an autograph. So I thought that was like just odd. I was like, wow, it kind of really woke me up. Like, wow, he really is like world famous, and like, people know this guy.
Yeah. And I think, I think back to some of the chats and interviews that I've seen with Scene, like, it's weird because for graffiti, the graffiti world, that is the opposite effect that you kind of want, but it actually turns into the thing that, and I almost feel like the more he distances himself from that whole thing and the hip hop thing, it's like the more people want it. Do you know what I mean?
So funny. I always said, people always used to say to me the whole selling out thing, or selling products and stuff like that, or going that route of designing, T-shirts or clothing or toys, whatever it may be, whatever you end up doing. They always used to say, like, isn't that the ultimate, getting up, to get yourself distributed worldwide, I mean, graffiti writers were graffiti is the first branding or advertising probably ever created.
For real.
What I mean? You think back to when it all started, and people drawing and leaving art, in random places and what that art spoke. So, you know, it's kind of funny that it's gotten to the point, you know, where you'll see advertisements on trains, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like the whole outside of the train. I remember a couple of years ago, they did Murakami, and they did a bunch of people on the New York subways. They just covered the subways with, you know, these advertisements. And I was like, why don't they just get the writers to do that? Like, you know, why don't they give it back to the writers? Because those are the people that got it.
It's so that the world is so contradictory to these rules that they implement. And, you know, there's marketing people up there in the big high-rise buildings that are calling all the shots, that climbed a ladder that was loosely built on graffiti. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. They're still doing it. They're like, I think about, like, I do a lot of marketing. I've been doing marketing for like the last 20 years. And I can't tell you how many times somebody has brought something to the table and said, can we do something like this? And I'll actually know the artist that they're showing me. I'll be like, why don't you just hire that guy? Why are we going to copy what he does? Why don't you just give the job to this dude?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, totally.
It's like, why are you doing that? You know, and you can see it all over the place. You know, people borrowing and you know, chomping.
My biggest pet hate, man. That's my biggest pet hate.
Yeah, it happens a lot. But I mean, you know, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
What you do is call it out. You know, you just call it out. But in the end, I don't know. Is it worth the aggravation?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's but then people's narratives change because it's been manufactured to be like that, and I just feel like, okay, you can be like the grumpy old man or the miser that complains about how your shit was ripped off, but then it's like what my mate Harry said. It's like then you got Grandmaster Kaz that was blatantly shouting for ages, "Those are my rhymes," and before you know it, oh yeah, everyone then admits, yeah, they were his rhymes. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's just such a shame.
It is a shame. Like when that was all realized by me, I was like, man, he's even saying his name. Like, how can you not prove? Like, how can you not?
Yeah, man. So I'm all for that, bro. I think it, and this is what this podcast is ultimately about, bro. Like, you know, I want to document while people are still alive and while stories can be told. And if it's contradictory, then people can speak up. But I just think it's really important that there's voices, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Got to be some record as into what really happened.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And without question, like, you are one of the forerunners of the vinyl, the toy, the manufacturing of graph on toys and the street art that became of it. Do you know what I mean? I want to thank you for that and for coming on, man, for real.
I appreciate it. No, I really appreciate it. I'm just glad to be doing what I still do. And, you know, still painting, still thankful that I actually get to create art for a living. And thankful for everything and grateful for everything it's brought to me, you know, through travel or through whatever I have, you know. Like I said before, when we were talking about like growing up in the late 80s and 90s, you know, I'm just thankful to be born at this particular time.
For real.
You know,
yeah.
Because I was around a lot of stuff. I still, you know, even in the, like, not a lot of things have really kind of like directed a whole generation, like the things of that particular era. You know, I think about just music alone. Just think about music alone and everything that's come out from the 80s to like even the end of the 90s. Let's just say it. I mean, not to sound grumpy old man, but it's pretty shit right now. But I mean, there's still good stuff. But
yeah, and you know, there's very small fine lines that are left to allow for younger people to fill holes in people's record collections. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's already a, you know, Stairway to Heaven. There's already a, you know, God Save the Queen. You know what I mean? Like, there's We Will Rock You, and there's all this hip hop, and like Bomb Squad really done the justice on production, in my opinion. But like, it's, you know what I mean? It's one of those things. I think they find art and music work parallel in that they with the smallest of confinements comes this opportunity to be super creative. And I think we're in that place right now, across the board. It's the technology is allowing things that have never ever been done before, and that's just absolutely mind bending. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely, like I said before, you don't need a company to fund a project anymore. I mean, you can really, if you want to design a toy, you can really do it. Honestly, you could do it in less than a month, and you could have a whole run of toys. You can design your packaging yourself, and it could be done for a fairly reasonable amount of money. Nothing that would totally break your bank.
For real. So get on it, people. Get your comments down. Any questions for Sket? I'm sure you're going to be checking out the comments section in due course, man. And because this is that time. It's the communication time, brother. Yep. What you got for the future? What's coming up in the next few months?
Let's see, more toys. Gonna have more releases coming out. Once this thing is, I need to get out and paint. That's the thing that this whole thing is kind of like put a damper on. I just want to get out and paint. I want to get out and use the pieces. But I have a ton of projects right now going on. We're giving away toys and over at Hype General.
We'll chuck the link in. We'll chuck the link in at the end, bro. We'll chuck the link in.
Okay, cool. And that's it. I'm just going to keep producing and keep moving forward.
Fire. So for those guys who you don't know, that link will be in the bottom of this video, and we'll all have a bunch of links as well, telling you all about the Killa Kela podcast and the live streams. Bro, thank you and hopefully in due course we will actually meet and hang out. How's about that? That'd be fucking cool.
Next time you're over here, I don't know the next time I'll be back over there. Might be a while.
Yeah. I think this
every place I possibly can go over there.
Better believe it, man. These chemtrails are just going to be like, it's just going to be like a knitted sweater by the time the rest of the world have got back on.
Yeah. Right when they open that up, forget about it. Everyone.
I fear the pub owners. You know what I mean? Straight into the pub, straight into the diners. Bang, bang. It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be a madhouse.
Sket One, the king, the don, the pioneer of graph in all its facets. Thank you so much for joining us on the Killa Kela podcast, brother.
Dude, thank you for having me, man. Much appreciated.
Stay lucky, people. Wherever you are, make some noise to Sket One. And man, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to share, subscribe, hit the bell. Do not sleep. I repeat, do not sleep. On my repeat. Stay lucky, people. Peace.
All right, peace.